All right, so in today's demonstration, we are still working with type and video, and I'm going to add some sound to this as well. But so in the last demonstration, we explored how to create type that actually embeds into the scenery. And so today we're kind of doing the same thing. We're creating type that's more three-dimensional, though. The last type was three-dimensional. It was just embossed into the concrete, or appeared to be. This is type that we're going to build in Adobe After Effects. And the idea is that it's going to animate to kind of race with the biker. And so we're going to, you're going to learn some new techniques in this demonstration. You're going to learn about camera tracking and creating a field that's specific for creating type at a very specific angle. Angles that follow the camera angle, if that makes sense. Does that make sense the way I said that? And so then we're gonna put the type in 3D and kind of fancy it up by adjusting like its reflectiveness and roll off of shadows, and then we'll animate it to move down the road with the biker. So we got a lot of steps to cover in this. So this is the example. I'm going to close this file and then we're going to walk through it together. So the document that we're working with today is in Blackboard. Let me get to the right class here because I'm in the wrong one. So if you go to the resource files in Module 3, there is a file. Well, I think you guys have already downloaded it, but it's the what is it called? The ocean scene. What's that? You mean the Pan Bridge? Yes, Pan Bridge. Thank you. It's the Pan Bridge file, and it's in one of these zipped files that you guys downloaded. It might be in the mini movie demonstration files. In fact, I think that's where it's at. I'm going to close this document. And I'm just going to begin a new composition from footage. So once you open Adobe After Effects, you'll want to click on the New Composition from Footage button and just go find that file, that MOV file, Pan Bridge HD MP4. Sorry, it's not an MOV, it's an MP4. And then open that up and test it out, and that's what we have. So when you watch the video, just the video, you can see that the perspective changes because the camera angle changes. And so we want our type to follow along that. Now, if we created type and put it in 3D mode and then tried to set its position, it just would not work out. We would not be able to really, without it being wavy and kind of constantly trying to realign itself. And so that's why we need to use this technique where we use camera tracking to kind of orient that type better to that changing camera angle. And so it follows the perspective of the biker and the road. So we're going to do this by Jerry.
You ain't gonna do it without me. So we about to do this. We about to do what?
We're about to wait for Jerry, folks, is what we're going to do.
Y'all was gonna let her just carry on without me? Yup. And all this time we spend together. Boy, I tell you, man, family be getting like that.
Listen, we're glad you're here, man. All right, so I'm going to Control-click on the MP4 layer. And we're going to look for Track and Stabilize and choose Track Camera. And so this feature is going to track the video from beginning to end, and it's going to pick out different points in the plane. And it'll take a second, but when it's done, you're going to see these little star forms pop up along the ground in the road. You're fine. In fact, I might just have to wake mine up. There we go. Thursday is our last day in this class. Yes, sir. So notice as I scrub through here. Now, if you want to know how, do you guys see these stars that popped up on my screen? Do y'all have that yet? If you don't, go ahead and open up your layer. Okay, because sometimes it'll just run through and you don't know that it's already finished. Yours is good. Open up the layer and find that effect. Open that. Did you already add the trim? Okay. Control click on that. That's command click. Control. Track and stabilize and track. And it'll just run through on its own. And then when you see those banners stop, then you'll either see the stars pop up on your screen, or you'll have to open that effect and go down to the 3D camera tracker and click on that, and then you'll see the stars. So you're doing good. How about you? So, are you working on something else? Okay, cool. But I'll watch the video. All right.
I'm trying to sign into my usual thing, and it's saying if I log this guest user out, it'll delete all files.
Oh, log the guest user out.
Okay.
Yeah, they were supposed to be logged out. I'm sorry, that's from company.
It says it'll delete files.
That's totally fine. Yep, those can all go. Yep. I thought we had logged that out.
I'd probably take that under the Sequoia update.
18 months.
All right, I'm so excited. All right, you guys, so now I'm going to use these stars to create a field that appears to be of the same plane and perspective of the road. And I'm going to start at the beginning of the timeline, because what we set up, this field is where we're going to create the type. So instead of creating type the way we've been doing it, like using the type tool and just clicking in the composition window, we're doing it a different way. We're doing it through the camera tracker. And so we want the type to be aligned to the perspective, again, of the biker and the road. So we've got to set up a field for that. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to use the shift key, because we'll need to hold the shift key down so that we can select multiple stars. Now you can see there's all kinds of stars out here in this landscape. They're all over here in this greenery, but we want to focus on the ones that are on the street level. So I'm going to start with this one right here, and I'll hold the shift key down and maybe come get this one and this one over here. And I won't worry about these in the middle, but I will get this far one out here. And so I've created kind of this triangle that's flat to the ground. And then through this field that I've created, I'm just going to bring my cursor out here to the center where this red dot is and press Control on the keyboard or right click with the mouse. And you're going to create text and camera. Now, we actually created some text just now. It's kind of hard to see because it's laying flat on the ground, all right? Something else that you guys need to make sure that your render settings for this composition are set to Cinema 4D. If they're not, then there are a couple of capabilities with being able to rotate or type and work with it in 3D that are not going to work well. So if you don't know how to go and reset your render settings, you'll go to Composition, and you'll go to Composition Settings, and you'll look at the different renderers, go to 3D Renderer, make sure the renderer is set to Cinema 4D, and hit OK.
How did you get it to the triangle?
So I got that triangle by holding the Shift key down and clicking on just a handful of stars, the ones that I wanted to use to help establish this field for that perspective. So that's why I didn't go off into the grass or up here in the bay or up against the mountains. I didn't pick any of those. I stayed right down here at street level.
And there was something about the text that you did.
Okay, so then you're going to control, once you get this field created, you're going to right click or control click Actually, I did it on that red dot in the middle of that field. And you will create text through Camera. And so I have some text that's been created. It's lying flat on the ground. I can't see it right now. But this automatically is in 3D mode because we're using the 3D tracker camera. So click on your text layer. And when you do, you'll see this gizmo pop up. And so we're going to work that text into the correct position and angle. And then we're going to make it say what we want it to say.
Sorry, was it create text and camera? Right.
Next question. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to stand this text up. You guys are familiar with this gizmo by now, right? So I can find the right angle to turn it on. So I'm going to use the x-axis to bring it up. All right, and so I'd like for it to say something that fits contextually to the subject matter in the background. So I'm going to change the wording to say by the sea. You can have it say whatever you want. It's up to you. But the cool thing is that once you put text in this kind of state, you can still work with it. So I'm going to just select it with the text tool. I'm going to put my caps lock on and type by the sea. And then I'm going to turn that caps lock right off, because if I don't, my text will disappear. And then I'm just going to continue. Now that I have more letters, I'm going to try and align it even more to the street. So I think this is where I want my type to be at the beginning. You can set the size of it, whatever size you want. And I want this to look kind of 3D. So even though it's standing up, it already begins to have a three-dimensional look to it. But since we are using 3D Camera Tracker, that puts this into 3D mode. And so that gives us some geometry options in our properties. I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but if you expand the type layer, right beneath transformation, there are geometry options. Let's open that up. And there's what's called extrusion depth. So if I just scrub through that, I can make my letters fatter and more three-dimensional. It's kind of hard to appreciate that that's what they're doing because they don't have quite the drop shadows and things that they need, or just reflected light and shadows. So I'm going to open material options. And I'm going to adjust the reflection roll off. And what else? The reflection intensity. Just to kind of give more detail to the letter edges so they look more three-dimensional. And then one more thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the opacity down just a little bit, maybe down to 70%. Because when the biker rides by, I think it's kind of neat that you can see her through the letters just a little bit. All right, and now we are ready to animate this. pause, walk around, see how everybody's doing, and then we'll come back. All right, so now let's make the type move. So this gets a little tricky. You know, I've done this so many times. Sometimes I can do this and the type just moves effortlessly and just briskly and with the bike and in a perfect straight line. Then there are other times I do this and I'll have to kind of come back and re-edit the motion path that gets created once you move the type. But I'm going to start at the very beginning, and I'm scrubbing through at the moment just to see, you know, the placement of my type. And I like the way it sits there at the beginning. I don't want it to start moving until the biker enters the scene. So when she's about right here, behind the word "the," that is where I want her to start running. Or, I mean, that's where I want the type to start moving. Sorry. So what I'm going to do, since I want the type to sit in the same spot until that point in the timeline, that's where I'm going to create my first keyframes. So I'm going to go to Transform, and I'm going to set keyframes for the position and the orientation, and eventually I might even set keyframes for scale, but we might do that later on down the road. So this is going to be where the type begins to move with her. So I'm going to move my playhead down. And you can notice now the type is starting to, it's still sitting in that same spot. It's not moving, it's the camera angle, you know, of the video that's moving. And so we need to readjust our type. And first of all, we need to move it. I'm going to zoom way out so I can see all of my gizmo. So I'm going to move my type down closer to her, and I'm going to move it on the Z-axis to kind of swing it back into the road area. Or swing it back to the middle of the road area. And it looks like I need to do a little bit of a rotation. Now I want to do this at the same place where I made a keyframe. So when I made that little pivot just a moment ago, it created a keyframe. So I don't want to make this pivot in another location. I want that to happen at where this keyframe is. So I'm going to rotate it a little bit, try and get it straightened up as best I can. And I think that some scaling might be helpful too. I'm going to zoom out, see what I have so far. So that's not terrible. But the type is really big off in the distance. We want it to get smaller like she does. So we're going to add some scaling to that. I like the way it moves as she moves. I don't like the way it's kind of coming off of, you know, getting out of alignment with the road, but I can fix that. But I'm going to set the scaling really quick. So I would think that right about here is where the scale of the type needs to change. So that's where I'm going to create the very first keyframe for the scaling property. And then at the end, I'm going to line up with these keyframes for position and orientation, and I'm just going to scale that type down. Play that again. So it looks a little wavy around the road. I mean, I can fix that just by going to these places and trying to make some realignments, but I always try and do them at the keyframe. I try not to introduce too many extra keyframes, because then you'll have things that will really kind of jump and pop, and it just won't look right by adding extra keyframes. You want things to tween together smoothly. All right, so I've animated this, and really the last thing I want to do is just drop some sound in here. And I meant to do that, and I hate the way this is animated. I would totally go back and redo this. My poor type just goes right off the road. But I would like to add some sound to this, so I'm going to do just that. Close close these layers, and go to File, Import, and go find my C wave sound. And there it is. And I'm just going to add it to my composition. Now we have some sound to go with it. And so that is that. And I had that click sound to go with our bicycle clicks, and I forgot to add that in last week at the end of that. But that would have been a good effect to add to that video as well. So I'm just going to call it a day for today's demonstration. Let you guys kind of practice this if you want to again before we meet on Thursday. On Thursday, one last thing that I want to go over with you all is just one of the most common uses for a program like this, and then it's how to create lower thirds that you can drop into videos, and you can drop them in exactly where you want them to start. And basically we will create a composition that's animated to look like a lower third, to be a lower third. And then we'll add type to it and have that type animate in. But what I want you guys to learn from that demonstration is, how to create a lower third, and to know that once you create that background, and if you have multiple lower thirds to drop in at different places in a video, you can just reuse that same composition and just change the wording in each one and just name them accordingly so you know which composition you're dropping in where. So we will be revisiting, working with shapes, with type, and also working with layer nulls that will control the whole grouped set of shapes to create that lower third, animated lower third. And then we'll talk about the last assignment for the class, and I'll show you an example of what I'm looking for the last assignment. And then you'll have that to work on until really the last day of finals, if you need that much time. I don't think that you will. I think it'll be a fairly straightforward assignment. But anyway, that is it for today. So I hope y'all enjoyed today's demonstration. And I will see y'all Thursday. It'll be our last day to meet face to face. So this semester has just flown by. I'll get this video uploaded for you guys later today in Blackboard.